for this day.
Oh,
Um,
so am I.
yeah, thank you so much, Kendra. I really appreciate you making our time to join this live today. And I know we're going to have loads of fun chatting about DEI stuff.
Mhm. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I know that, this is work hours for quite a lot of people around the world. So don't feel any type of way that we don't have a lot of people joining, because people would be able to people would be able to tune in and watch. And welcome to those who are just
Welcome.
tuning in to watch. Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for joining us. So we'll just get right into it, Kendra. In case anyone is joining this channel for the first time, welcome. I remain Ola, your DEI bestie.
Oh,
And through Inclusive Est, I help inclusive leaders and organizations ensure that they get the very best out of their employees,
mhm.
and ensure that their organizations function at the highest levels of productivity, innovation, and inclusion, especially by fostering a strong sense of belonging in the workplace. Today, we're going to be going back to the basics, and I'm so glad that I don't get to do it alone. We're going to be unpacking the concepts of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. What do we really mean when we
Mm.
talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion? And with me today, I have Kendra. I would allow Kendra to do an introduction, a very quick introduction. Kendra, welcome, welcome, welcome once again. Please feel free to share as much as you want, your personal background, your academic background, your experience, your motivations around DEI, as much as you want to share. Please take it away.
No, thank you. So my my name is Kendra, and I have been my experience with DEI has been, well, mostly academic. I have been in academia for 10 years. I actually just got my PhD. Very exciting. And I started my DI journey in undergrad, in my fourth year of undergrad. Actually, I kind of got into it indirectly, but so I knew when I started academia that I wanted to go to an international school abroad, and I wanted to go both for master's and PhD. And one of the things that help you on your application is volunteering. So I found this lovely place called the Women's Resource Center in Calgary at the University of Calgary. And that is an organization that offers resources and just help and space for anyone who needs it or who wants to feel a sense of belonging. So I applied to volunteer there my fourth year. And part of that was I was a education and event peer helper. And part of that was you needed a lot of training. And that training was DEI centric, but also inclusivity. And that really opened my eyes. And it really fundamentally changed my perspective going forward. And I realized how valuable it is, not just to academia and the university setting, but also beyond, in the workplace, in society, in just a general community. And it made me realize I want to implement this and learn more about this going forward as much as possible. And I
Mhm.
had the opportunity to do that when I became a seminar tutor at the University of York. I was responsible for up to 70 students a year. Uh, and I implemented what I learned, but I also learned a lot through teaching about DEI, particularly in the university setting, and why and how it adds tangible value, but also it adds value to the employees like myself.
Mhm.
And so it now I'm leaving academia, but I want to continue that journey in the secular working world, if that's what you call it here in Canada.
Some people say industry, but whatever.
Industry, that works too.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Kendra, where is home for you?
Home for me now is Toronto. It was the UK for the past 5 years, but now it's Toronto, Canada, for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Nice. Wow. It's good to see how, just an opportunity led you down that whole road of, learning more about DEI and being super motivated to even translate it to like practical
Mm.
stuff in the work that you were doing anyway. Yeah, that's super, super interesting. But just to dive deeper into the
Mm.
conversation of the day, we see a lot of backlash around the world against DEI, a whole lot of backlash. We even see giant corporations, big global institutions, and I'm going to name names: McDonald's,
Oh no.
Walmart, rolling back their DEI efforts, scrapping their DEI teams, and erasing DEI related language from their work and their organization. And there's just the general backlash against DEI that it makes me wonder, do we all really even know what DEI is? And DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion for those who might not be very familiar with the acronym. And Kendra, I think it would be a great place for us to kick off this conversation. How would you describe, in your own words, how would you describe the concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion in very practical terms
Hmm.
that everybody can understand, everybody can, relate with? And why do you even think it's important for us to keep investing in DI, especially in today's workplace? Please take it away.
Well, so from a very practical term, I would say diversity is about it's about acknowledging and accepting people from different groups, different backgrounds, different beliefs, and recognizing those differences, but that they add value, that they are positive.
Mm,
Inclusion is making everyone feel like they belong, that they're included, and also making sure that there are initiatives and steps to ensure that everyone can actually be included,
mm,
which is very important. And equity is about understanding that everyone may not have had the same opportunities, the same support
yeah.
as some, and providing that, or building bridges so that we can reach that point of inclusion with that understanding.
That's so succinct. And why would you say we need to keep investing in these three interrelated concepts? Why do we need to even achieve them in today's workplace?
Well, particularly from an industry standpoint, and this also applies to universities as well. I've seen it firsthand. Diversity and inclusion and equity, when they're put into practice, they have tangible benefits. And I keep driving at home because it's so important. And the kind of benefits I mean is you widen perspectives. So when you get a diverse group of individuals, you see different points of view, you see different beliefs, you see different thought patterns, and that really adds value. I saw it in my classroom. Students, when they felt comfortable to share, and that's the inclusion part, they needed to feel like they were in a safe place, that their thoughts and opinions were valued, uh, and that they were free to open up. And when they did that, I noticed that students, they really learned from each other, and I learned from them, and that just added significantly to their experience. And I was able then to take that and apply that to uh, my own teaching plans and my own teaching pedagogy,
Mm,
and and I was able to teach that to other seminar tutors, which so it just expanded and expanded, and it was wonderful.
mm. I hear you in terms of that level of self expression and being able to own the space because
Mm.
of inclusion, right? It's like we're all here to achieve a common goal.
Mhm,
For
mhm.
you in academia, it was learning, teaching, and learning. But in some workplaces, there are like organizational goals that are to be met. But we can't even go ahead and achieve those goals if everyone does not feel like they belong in
Mm.
workplace. If they don't feel respected, they don't feel acknowledged, they don't feel like, someone is making an effort to ensure that they have everything it takes to thrive at their maximum potential. And that's really something that keeps me, doing this work. And I wonder, Kendra, if you have any sort of practical experiences when it comes to implementing diversity, equity, and inclusion within academia. Do you have any specific experiences, any specific lessons you've learned from the academic world? And also, if you see any interconnections with the concept of inclusion in wider society from the academic world, please feel free to share as well.
Okay. So the big thing I would say is if you want to create an inclusive and diverse, like promote diversity in your classroom, it has to start with you, because when I started teaching, I didn't understand that. Well, for one thing, different cultures have different like different learning standards, different learning experiences, and international students come into the classroom, and they may have different expectations. They may have different uh, communication standards, or communication habits was one. Uh, they may not understand what the UK system expects of them, or uh, and how to thrive in that system. And it was my job as a teacher to learn as much as I could about my students and their individual learning needs, and their which is influenced by their background, their experiences, their beliefs, all of that.
Yeah.
And so what I did on a practical level was, every single year at the start of the semester, I would send out an anonymous form asking students, what do you need individually to succeed in this class? How best do you learn? And if there's anything else I can do to help you, or anything you think I should know, is there any extra needs that you need met? And that it took time to tailor my um, teaching around that. But when I did, I noticed massive results from my students, both in their grades, but also their willingness to participate.
Mm,
And also, I had students who didn't really, they didn't know what DI was, they didn't know what intersectionality was. So it was just on making them understand, like, and I was very vocal about this, especially in ethics, that this is what diversity is, and if you have any thoughts on it, open up. Or it was the same with accessibility and inclusion. And that, when it took some time, but when students really start to feel comfortable and overcome that imposter syndrome, which I also saw a lot of, particularly um, with students who felt like, who you did come from different backgrounds and felt out of place, in their words. uh, it really benefited them just to take that time and learn um, about what they needed and implement that.
mm,
And so, but also, that also makes it so that they feel comfortable speaking up, because if they're being quiet, unless they prefer that, there may, and more often than not, I've seen it where it's just a thing of, they just don't feel comfortable answering the questions.
mm.
It's,
Yeah, that really resonates with me so much. I can't help but remember when I left Nigeria. I'm from Nigeria, by the way. I left Nigeria for the first time a few years ago to do a master's in the United Kingdom at the University of Sussex. And
mm,
I just also noticed how culture, as a lens, of course, individuals are unique, but
mm,
individual cultural backgrounds influence how people communicate, how people interact, how people read situations, and the
mm,
extent to which people feel comfortable being themselves in certain, scenarios. So it was really an eye opener for me, because in my master's class at that time, I think we had up to give or take 12 to 15 nationalities represented.
Wow.
So it was, yeah, it was
That's
really,
fantastic.
yes, it was really eye opening. And I would say, like, it was the time, it was the one first time that I was immersed in a lot of diversity of culture. And I could see that play out within settings. And then, of course, a lot of us were also coming to the United Kingdom for the first time. So there was that clash of, host culture versus we who were there for, like, a year and a few months, and trying to integrate to the extent that we could while still preserving our identities and pursuing our academic goals and all other personal goals. So that was also that really resonated with me, and that experience that I had. And how would you say that this then relates to the wider society? Can you draw any sort of similarities as to how that also plays out in the broader society? Because eventually education shapes people for the wider world, right? And many times you see what transpires within academic settings coming outside of it and replicating itself in the wider society. I wonder if that is also your experience.
I just want to comment this. I don't have a lot of experience yet on the outside world, but what I have seen is what concerns me is if there is a lack of understanding about what DEI is truly in academia. My worry is that it can spill out and into industry. And Oxfam was fantastic. I volunteered there for 2 years, and they were fantastic. But it made me realize just how important this understanding is, because if one person doesn't understand on the team and devalues it, or does not see the yeah, doesn't see the value in DEI initiatives, or even in accessibility initiatives, it makes it so much harder.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's definitely not, it's not a one person's job.
No.
Even if one person is sort of accountable or responsible for steering diversity, equity, and inclusion, eventually it boils down to everyone's attitude and everyone's sort of disposition within the team. It's not something that can be abandoned for one person or a specific group of people within the team. I definitely agree with that. Thank you so much, Kendra. It's been good hearing, some of your perspectives on that. Not to put you on the spot, but I just thought about how people are often critical of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. People are just like, you know, we have laws in place that protect equal rights.
Mm.
We need to keep going on and on and on and on about this. I wonder what your thoughts are on that and what your reaction would be in terms of people who are skeptical of DEI, and how you would, encourage them to learn more about diversity and inclusion, and perhaps be a little bit more open minded to see how that benefits all of us.
Oh boy. Okay, so I have real life experience with this, and I remember I mentioned earlier about imposter syndrome. This is where this comes up. Uh, Really, it started when I was in masters. But there was this attitude, some attitude on some campuses, that DI initiatives are profoundly unfair.
Mm,
And the reasoning with that was they're that was when I began to really worry about misunderstanding with DI, because their attitude was, if a student of a certain, if like they're a woman, for example, or a certain color, or certain nationality, or a sex, or a gender, or they identify as a certain gender, they're accepted because of that rather than merit. And that was an attitude I saw, well, not a lot, but I saw it enough to make me worry,
yeah.
especially with higher programs. Like, oh, you were only accepted into teaching because you're a woman. And the other attitude is that is, they say it's unfair because you're counting these check boxes over real merit. And that is profoundly misunderstood, but also it has negative consequences, because I had students come to me and say, I feel like I feel like I'm not smart as the other kids, or I've been told I'm here because I'm black, and it broke my heart, but it also made me realize it's so hard to convince them that no, you are here because you earned a position, because you belong here. It's so hard to convince them of that when somebody has said to the counter. And
Mm,
I and then that's when the imposter syndrome starts in. And
mm,
it can just be even a little comment. I remember when I was in masters, oh, I had really bad imposter syndrome. I was in masters at Edinburgh, and I was talking, and I mentioned to some of the students that I had a job in high school. I didn't. Our family was not poor, but we weren't like the richest either. And all the students were shocked. They were like, "You were working in high school?"
wow.
And it made me feel very insecure. It wasn't a good feeling. So uh, and also the whole you're here because you're a woman thing. It devalues their like contributions, like, and they truly. So that to me is very concerning.
Yeah, and we really need to speak up and fix such narratives, because the idea of inclusion and equity sort of initiatives is not to hand people things simply
Mm-mm.
because of their identity. No, that's not how it works.
No.
People go through rigorous selection processes. Their identity, their minoritized identity, is just one part of them. It's not, the whole 100% of their capacity and their capability. So I definitely agree with you on that. Finally, Kendra, what would you say? What would be your words of encouragement or motivation for someone who is genuinely seeking to build a more equitable team or advance inclusion within their team or their organization even? The person is really motivated, but the person doesn't even know what to do, where to start. How would you encourage them?
Well, the first thing I want to say is it's completely normal to not know where to start. I had no idea where to start. Uh, but the fact that you want to is a very good first step. And what I would say is, for me personally, it was, you have to look at yourself first,
Mm,
because you are going, if you are like, let's say you're entering a team, you're going to have certain, whether you're conscious of it or not, you're going to have certain expectations of communication, of expectations of how work is delegated. All of that, you need to be aware. So, for example, if you come into a team, well, a Canadian versus a British team. If you're a Canadian going onto a British team, you may think, oh, everyone's going to be open and very talkative and communicative. But that's just not the way it is in Britain. And the British also need to understand it goes both ways. They can't expect you to know their culture or their the way they do things if you're new. And I'm sure you know
yeah,
exactly what that's like
sure.
going to Britain. So my just ask yourself, what am I used to? What am I expecting? And then you have to challenge that. You have to, and the way you do that is you talk to people. It's all about communication. You need to talk to them. You need to hear their perspective, and you need to adjust accordingly. And it sounds like a lot of work, and in the beginning it is, but eventually you'll want to do it because you see results, which is exactly what happened to me, and I've seen it happen to other teachers. It produces.
Mm. Thank you so much for that. And it just, when you said start from self, it really spoke to me because I find that a lot of times we seek to transform the external without looking inwards and really checking those biases we have unlearning certain things, going out of our comfort zone, listening more, like you said. So, sort of modeling the right behavior is also a great way to start, right? It's actually one of the, lowest hanging fruits. If you want to have an inclusive team, start with doing things that are, inclusive. Start with how you facilitate meetings, for instance, how you share space with your colleagues, how you communicate with others, how you listen to others. And to be honest, that's one of the most powerful ways that you can change your team and transform others around you, by just modeling the right behavior. That's a really great one. Thank you so much, Kendra. It's gone a little bit longer than I
Oh no.
expected, but
I'm
it's
sorry.
really great. No, no, no. Please do not be sorry. You delivered nuggets. So thank you so much. It's been great having you, and definitely would love to have you some other time talking about something else. Thanks to everyone who has joined and who
Yes,
just
thank
watched
you.
this. Thank you for sticking around. See you in the next one, in the next video. Thank you so much, Kendra. Bye.
Bye.